the first. He's the owner of mercy. He sent his messengers, creatures of the grave danger of worshiping other than Allah. There is none greater.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful, I greet you, my dear viewers, in our Islamic way. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace, mercy, and blessings be with you all. In this exercise, we have been trying to discuss the scientific precision in the glorious Qur'an. And as we have repeatedly mentioned, the glorious Qur'an is a book of guidance to man in areas that cannot be correctly addressed by man, such as the area of faith, the acts of worship, the moral code, and the code of transactions with others. These four basic areas cannot be correctly addressed by man, and hence the need for religion. And the need for religion to be an absolutely of divine nature without the slightest human infiltration. And these verses come also to testify to the fact that every unseen fact mentioned in the glorious Quran can be exactly correct as the scientific notions are precisely correct. First of all, we have to understand these verses in the context of the Arabic language, and then we have to add the scientific facts with the scientific rules and regulations, as well as the rules and regulations of the Arabic language, so that we can comprehend the meaning of the verse. Once we reach that level, we can see for ourselves that the precedence of the glorious Quran with a very large number of scientific facts that were not known to man until centuries after its revelation. This precedence is what we call the scientific miraculous nature of the glorious Quran, or the scientific precision in the glorious Quran. We have mentioned the creation, the annihilation or destruction, and resurrection of the cosmos. We have mentioned water in the Quran. We have mentioned the wind, clouds, and the atmosphere in the glorious Quran, earthquakes in the glorious Quran. We have mentioned plants in the glorious Quran, and in this episode we shall start discussing some animals reported in the glorious Quran. In this process, I've chosen for you verse number 45 in Surah An-Nur, chapter number 24 in the glorious Quran, which reads, والله خلق كل دابة من ماء فمنهم من يمشي على بطن ومنهم من يمشي على رجلين ومنهم من يمشي على أربع يخلق الله ما يشاء إن الله على كل شيء قدير. And this verse contains more than one scientific fact. The first is والله خلق كل دابة من ماء, and Allah has created every living being that trods on earth from water. And actually this is a scientific fact that everything living on the surface of that planet was actually created from water, plants, animals, and humans. And then the other fact is a means of classifying the vast number of living forms. And the verse reads, فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَمْشِي عَلَى بَطْنٍ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَمْشِي عَلَى رِجْلَيْنِ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَمْشِي عَلَى أَرْبَعٍ. Of them, of these creatures, living creatures that trod the earth, some creep on their bellies, some walk on two legs, and some walk on four. يخلق الله ما يشاء إن الله على كل شيء قدير. Allah creates whatever He wills, for verily Allah has power over all things. And we see in this verse these two important facts. First of all, the creation of every living being on the surface of our planet from water, which is a scientific fact. And then a means of classifying these living beings. Science today tells us that we know of about 11 million species living on the surface of our planet. And each species is represented by billions of individuals throughout history. And unless there is a means of classification, man could have never ever really known much about this wonderful creation of Allah. And one easy way of classifying living beings on earth is the mode of movement, a locomotion on the belly, or movement on 2 legs, or on 4 legs. وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَ كُلَّ دَابَّةٍ مِّن مَّاءٍ, and Allah has created every living being moving on earth from water. Of them, some creep on their bellies, some walk on 2 legs, and some walk on 4. And this was one of the simplest ways of classifying the vast number of living beings on the surface of our planet. And that's why the verse ends by saying, يَخْلُقُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ. Allah creates whatever He wills. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. Verily, Allah has power over everything. Then we come to another verse in Surah Al-An'am, chapter number 6, in the glorious Qur'an, verse number 38. The verse reads, وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا طَائِرٍ يَطِيرُ بِجَنَاحَيْهِ إِلَّا أُمَمٌ أَمْثَالُكُمْ مَا فَرَّطْنَا فِي الْكِتَابِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ ثُمَّ إِلَى رَبِّهِمْ يُحْشَرُونَ. There is not an animal that lives on the earth, nor a bird that flies on its wings, but are communities like you. Nothing have we missed in the book, and they all shall be gathered to their Lord. And this verse again emphasizes the need for classifying living beings so that man can be aware of at least, so I'm not saying everything, of at least some of them. وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا طَائِرٍ يَطِيرُ بِجَنَاحَيْهِ إِلَّا أُمَمٌ أَمْثَالُكُمْ. These are actually communities like the human community. Nothing have we missed in the book. ما فرطنا في الكتاب من شيء ثم إلى ربهم يحشرون, and all will return back to their creator. Nowadays we know that there are about 4 million fossil species that lived and died and became extinguished, and we have around 8 million species living today. Every species of this big number of living beings is represented by billions of individuals, and these billions of individuals have to be classified so that a man can study them, can know them. And we have kingdom, phyla, classes, orders, families, genera, species, varieties, and strains. And this is the only means by which man could recognize some of the very many kingdoms of living beings on the surface of our planet. And in the most recent classification, we have kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom Fungi, kingdom Plantae, kingdom Animalia, and kingdom of man. And wrongly, man is included in the animal kingdom, but man is an exalted creation of Allah, and he should never ever be included with animals. The very first attempt to classify living beings was carried out by Carolus Linnaeus in 1758, towards the end of the 18th century, and for the Qur'an to indicate necessity of classifying living organisms is a precedent that can testify to the fact that this cannot be the work of man. And we shall go for a short break, and until we meet, I thank you for listening. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace, mercy, and blessings be with you all.
On his creatures.
Students of Islamic International School showcase on eve of the IIS Annual Day event.
Welcome you to this grand finale of the Islamic International School. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Performances par excellence, recitations soul
Man
stirring,
finds means for momentary pleasure when I am with him and goes astray. They are the enemy, so beware of them.
This is the summary of Recreation expenses this month.
And don't you forget who's the boss. Oh, yeah?
watch these school kids impress and uplift your hearts, your minds and your iman.
With Allah's help, this will be a memorable event.
Whiz Kids, tonight at 7:30 p.m. and repeat telecast at 10:30 a.m. Saudi Arabia on Peace TV.
We love to be good. A good leader, a good father, a good husband, a good son, and a good neighbor. So join us to learn the art of goodness. In our program, the significance of Islamic adab.
Recognize the specific qualities essential to polish your character in Significance of Islamic Adab tonight at 11:30 p.m. and repeat telecast at 12:30 p.m. Saudi Arabia on Peace TV. Spreading awareness.
If you go way back to the time of the Prophet ﷺ, we find that the companions, they differed, but the difference was not in clashing and fighting.
Why this issue is so controversial today in Islam.
Promoting righteousness.
All the four scholars themselves, they said, if you find a hadith that goes against my saying, then you take the hadith.
Once the concept is understood, I think many problems will be solved.
Emphasizing God's message of peace for humankind.
Never take as a close, intimate friend except a mu'min.
The one who has the taqwa, or the truthful,
Uplifting our faith and good deeds.
Patience in the obedience of Allah. Patience in abstaining from that which is haram. The greater the reward is in this life and the hereafter.
Grasp the opportunity to enhance your knowledge of Islam in Islamic Viewpoint. Next on Peace TV.
Welcome back after this short break. We were discussing the great scientific precision some of the animals are mentioned with in the glorious Qur'an. And we discussed 2 verses, and we'll come to the 3rd verse, which reads, حتى إذا أتوا على وادي النمل قالت نملة يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون. This verse in Surah An-Naml, chapter number 27 in the glorious Quran, verse number 18, and its translation goes as follows: till when they came to the valley of the ants. The verse speaks about Sulaiman alayhi salam, Solomon as he is known in the English language, and his army. Says, till when they came to the valley of the ants. One of the ants said, O you ants, get into your habitations, lest Solomon and his hosts crush you under their own feet without knowing it. And here again, we can see a large number of scientific facts. This fact that the verse comes in the context of narrating part of the history of Solomon, may Allah be pleased with him. Till when they came to the valley of the ants. First of all, the chapter is called Ants and Nam, and mentioned in the plural, because ants live a communal living. a social living. No ant can live on its own. And that's why one aspect of the precision of the glorious Qur'an is every form of animal that lives a social life. The chapter is named in the plural form. Every animal that lives a single life, the chapter is named in the singular case. Till when they came to the valley of the ants. And this is again another emphasis that ants lead a communal life. One of the ants said, and this is an emphasis to the fact that ants are creations that have got a certain degree of intelligence. They have their own language. They can speak to each other. And Allah has given Solomon, may Allah be pleased with him, and his father, David, may Allah be pleased with him, the capacity to know the languages of some of animals. And the fact that animals have a language and they have a certain degree of awareness is a novelty in the field of zoology, a branch called animal behavior. And this branch was developed only very recently in the 20th century. And for the Quran to spell that fact out 14 centuries ago is enough evidence to testify to every sane person that this noble book cannot be the work of man. One of the ants said, "O you ants, get into your habitations, lest Solomon and his hosts crush you under their own feet without knowing you." And here again, an evidence that this queen of the ant valley or the ant community recognized Solomon. She knew that he was a prophet. And she said to her workers or her individuals, lest Solomon and his hosts crush you under their own feet without knowing. Because she knows that Solomon is a prophet. He will not kill any living being unduly. And that's, she said, without knowing. And here we find some of the marvels of expressions in this verse. Firstly, that ants live in big groups, in big colonies, and science indicates that there are at least 18,000 species of ants, and most of them live a colonial life. Secondly, the ant is a small being. Its dimensions range between 1 and 7 millimeters. Despite this fact, ants play a very important role in the balance of the environment, in the ecosystem, because ants kill billions of insects, harmful insects that are dangerous to life annually. If these insects were left to live, they would completely destroy the green cover of vegetation of the earth. In addition to this, ants play a very important role in the aeration of the soil and fertilization of the soil and purification of the soil by their activity. Thirdly, ants have got their own language. We know from these languages a chemical language, a body movement language, and a voice language. Finally, the verse indicates that ants have got certain degree of intelligence, certain degree of conception, certain degree of feeling and a reaction, which came to our knowledge only very recently in the field of animal behavior. And for this verse to contain that immense number of scientific facts is a living testimony that it cannot be the work of man. Similarly, we have a chapter called An-Nahl, the bees. This chapter number 16 in the glorious Quran. And in verse number 68 in this chapter we read, وَأَوْحَى رَبُّكَ إِلَى النَّحْلِ أَنِ اتَّخِذِي مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا وَمِنَ الشَّجَرِ وَمِمَّا يَعْرِشُونَ ثُمَّ كُلِي مِنْ كُلِّ الثَّمَرَاتِ فَاسْلُكِي سُبَلَ رَبِّكِ ذُلَلًا يَخْرُجُ مِنْ بُطُونِهَا شَرَابٌ مُخْتَلِفٌ أَلْوَانُهُ فِيهِ شِفَاءٌ لِلنَّاسِ إن في ذلك لآية لقوم يتفكرون. And the translation goes as follows: and your Lord inspired the bees to take its habitations in the mountains, in the trees, and in what human beings erect for them. Then eat of all fruits and follow the ways of your Lord that are made easy for you. There comes forth from their bellies a drink of varying color, wherein is healing for human beings. Verily, in this is indeed a sign for people who can reflect. I will read the translation again. And your Lord inspired the bees to take its habitations in the mountains, in the trees, and in what human beings erect. Then eat of all fruits and follow the ways of your Lord that are made easy for you. There comes forth from their bellies a drink of varying color, wherein is healing for human beings. Verily, in this is indeed a sign for people who can reflect. And we can see in this verse also a large number of scientific facts that can be summarized as follows: that Allah can inspire any of his creation, solids, liquids, gaseous bodies, animals, plants, humans. Every creation of Allah can be inspired by Allah. All glory be to him whenever he wishes. Secondly, the language to the bees comes in the feminine structure and in the past tense, simply because the creation of bees goes back long before the creation of man. Bees are proved to have been created since 150 million years ago. The oldest record of man on earth does not exceed 40,000 years. Thirdly, the ones who are entrusted with building the beehive in mountains, in trees, or in whatever man erects, are the females of the bees. The beehive has one queen and a very large number of workers. Most of them are females, and these females cannot really lay down eggs. It's only the queen that can lay down eggs, and a small number of male bees, and the role of these male bees is only to fertilize the queen. The female bees are the ones that collect the flower juices to produce this beautiful liquid, which we call honey. And honey is, of course, has got very many different colors depending on the source from which it has been derived. The sequence in the verse means that the best quality of honey is the one that is stored in mountains. Secondly, the one that is stored in beehives structured on trees. And thirdly, on artificial beehives constructed by man. And actually, recent researches have proved that this sequence is absolutely correct. Fourthly, we know about 12,000 species of bees. Those that live a social life are about 600 species first. The beehive contains, as we said, between 40 and 80,000 workers, infertile females, and 200 males, and one queen. The queen is capable of laying 1,500 eggs a day. The term athamarat in the verse, the fruits, means the origins from which these fruits are produced, from the male and female organs of the flowers and what accompanies them of juices and pollen grains. Each female bee of these workers travels for 500,000 kilometers just to collect plant juices that can produce 1 kilo of honey without losing its own way. And because of this, for collecting 3 to 4 kilos of these flower juices, the female bee worker goes out in 600,000 to 800,000 visit. That visit in every time between 6 and 8 million flowers. Really, the Quranic description for the fluid in the bellies of these female workers of the bees, the name of fluid, a drink actually of varied color, actually a very precise terminology, because it does not only contain what we call the bee honey, it contains the royal jelly, contains pollen grains, it contains the glue of the honeybee called al-ukbar, it contains the wax of the honey, it contains the poison of the honey, it contains the bread of the honey which is fed for others than the queen. The color of the honey actually ranges between white, transparent, to all various of shades until we get very dark colored types in different stages. And I think we come here to the end of this episode, and we'll continue with you, inshallah, discussing Quranic notions about animals, testifying the great precision of the Quranic description of these animals. And until we meet, I thank you for listening and greet you in our Islamic way. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace, mercy, and blessings be with you all.